Values can be passed as arguments to a function in two different ways, by value or by reference. Let's take a look at the difference. The most common way is to pass arguments by value. If you want to capture any changes that the function makes to the value of the argument, you need to assign the function's return value to a new variable or reassign it to the existing one. Let's experiment by creating a simple function to double a number. I'm going to start off by defining a number. Initialize that at 2. Then we need to create our function that will pass by value. So the function keyword, then the name of the function, I'll call it double it, and then the argument that we're going to pass to the function. I'm deliberately going to use the same name as the original variable that I've initialized on line 2. So I'm going to use number. And I've done that because I want to demonstrate that functions act rather like a black box shielded from the rest of the script. Inside here we need to have a return value, and it will be number, the argument that has been passed to the function, times equals 2. And then we can test our function. We'll store the return value as doubled, then use the double it function and pass it our variable called number. Then we need to display the result. We'll have a single quoted string because I want to distinguish between the two results. Doubled is, then the actual value of doubled, and a line break. Then we'll do the same with number. So if we save that and load it into a browser, we see that the return value, doubled, is 4, but number, the variable, is still 2. This is because we passed by value. When you do that, the PHP engine makes a copy of the value and it works on the copy. As a result, the original value stored in the variable remains unchanged, and the changes made to number inside the function have no effect on this same name variable outside the function. The function creates its own environment or scope that's separate from the rest of the script. Another point to note about passing by value is you can pass it an ordinary value rather than a variable. So on line 9, instead of number, we'll pass it 8, a literal number, save that and refresh, and the return value is 16. That's the doubled value. So that's passing by value. Let's take a look now at passing by reference. And what I'm going to do is to comment out the function definition on lines 5 to 7. That's because you can't redefine a function in the same script. So we'll now pass by reference. And we'll call the function the same name, double it. And to pass by reference, you need to precede the argument by an ampersand. So ampersand, and I'm going to use a different variable this time for the argument. I'm going to call it num. And we don't need to return a value because we're passing a reference to the actual variable that we're passing into the function. So in other words, it's working on the variable directly. So we simply have num times equals 2. And then on line 14, I'll change that from the literal 8 to number, our variable, save that, and then reload this page in the browser. Nothing is displayed for doubled, but number, the variable itself, has now been changed to 4. It's no longer 2. So passing by reference changes the value of the original variable. An important thing to note is that this ampersand is only in the definition of the function. You don't use it when you call the function itself. So let's see what the value of doubled is now that we're passing by reference. We can use var underscore dump to inspect the contents of a variable. So we pass it doubled and then save and reload. And var dump is simply null. It's nothing at all. Nothing has been returned by the double it function. Now let's try using this function with an ordinary number. We'll pass it 8 again, save and refresh this page in the browser, and we now get a fatal error, and it tells us that only variables can be passed by reference. And that makes a lot of sense because you can't really change the value of 8. 8 is always 8. So we've looked at two ways that functions handle values passed to them as arguments. Most functions take arguments that are passed by value. They make a copy of the value and work on the copy, so the original value remains unchanged unless you reassign the function's return value to the same variable. However, when an argument is passed by reference, the function changes the value of the variable, and to create this type of function, you precede the argument with an ampersand in the function definition. There's no need for this type of function to return a value because any changes made by the function affect the original value. However, remember that passing by reference means you can't pass a literal value such as a number or a string to the function.